Okay, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining our this week's tips and tricks call. Today's topic is Smart Console Session Revision and Change Review. Please use the Q&A chat. If you have any questions during the webinar, we'll make sure we get to those. That will get started. Our presenter today is a security engineer from Pennsylvania, Dan Knoll. Dan, take it away.
Thanks, Rob. You are seeing the screen fine, right?
Yes, correct.
Okay. Welcome everybody to 2021 Tips and Tricks number 7. We're going to cover some basic topics, but nonetheless, I feel they're important and good to share. Session and change features, Smart Console extension, and revision control. So, a published session advanced feature within the advanced feature of the managing settings, you can control a few options. You can force the session name. Basically, as you can see in the display, it forces the admin session name in the session name itself at a minimum. You can also force a description. Ensuring that you actually have session names and the use of them, I think holds a lot of merit and value. In my experiences, I can see where this could translate, if you have a change control policy and let's say it's department oriented and the department was a developer requesting a change, you could put in there what that developer and the change number. It gives accountability and credit to the change. So there's also an option, as not widely known though, but beneficial, especially in days of nonstop distractions. And under the managed settings and preferences, if you scroll to the bottom, you'll see that there is a checkpoint lab section. And checking the box enables a session pane. The operation becomes visible on the right-hand side, as you've seen in the display. And the changes are shown in a chronological order. This is a high-level change and an overview, basically a reminder. And again, these are changes that have yet to been published. An example there, you're looking at an object that was created of rule 5. You could see that the change, something happened in destination. It doesn't tell you exactly what happened in destination, but it does give you some sense of where the change happened and what occurred. In addition to the session pane, another feature, again, not highly known, is the change extension. This is designed to extend a third-party vision within SmartConsole. Here I'm showing some links that I'll share all this information out, but there's a developers repository in GitHub where individual customizations and collaborations can be realized. The extension that I'm going to be working with and discussing isn't located in the GitHub repository. It's actually held in a checkpoint bucket off of the Google Cloud based off the documents. And just to be aware that adding the extension, the change extension that I'm going to be showing, you'll need internet access. The PC or wherever you're going to be running SmartConsole will need internet access. So in order to add the change extension, again, you would navigate to the managing settings, selecting preferences, and you scroll down till you find the extension area. Here you'll, using the listed URL provided, and the extension will be actually installed once you provide that and hit OK. There's no requirement for a reboot with this extension, and you'll have the ability to disable the extension as as an option or as desired. The change button will be added and visible once confirmed from the security access policy pane, gateway and servers operation pane, and the revision and session operation pane. All these the change buttons are located within the toolbars near the top as shown. So the change button provides an overview of all unpublished changes as related to the active session. As you'll see, the change summary display will have the same as the session name. This example shows a summary of 1 access rule, 1 threat policy, 7 new objects, and the each one can be selected to jump directly to the details, or you just scroll down and review all the changes which were modified. And you can show here in this is from the session pane that we looked at, the change pane. This is showing you very much detailed exactly what was changed. Very beneficial to know instead of chasing and guessing. So several examples here of the details. I mean, it could be as simple as a color change of the object. It could be a NAT rule and what was added and changed into that NAT rule, as the example shows. But it highlights the session name and it highlights what was changed to it. So in a multi-security administration organization, having to pick unpublished change from another admin session due to maybe an emergency probably happens more often than we care to admit. Not that long ago, we only had one admin that could had rights to make change. Well, with more flexibility comes with more complexity. So taking over a session from another admin begins from the manage and settings operation pane again, selecting the view sessions. You can see the different changes. You can see here admin 3 has unpublished 12 unpublished changes. Note that if the change extension was enabled, selecting and highlighting admin 3, you could hit the change button and view those changes. But in this example, we haven't enabled this change extension button. So the other item to be aware of is the active admin. If he has any changes that are unpublished, so in this example, admin has 8 of them, he's not going to be able to take over or do anything with the admin 3 because he can't take over because he's got to have, he can only hold 1 active session change at a time. You'll also see that there's a few options here. And so, in trying to take over a session that you have a session active, you'll get an error. There's also only a few options that the admin has. You can you can basically publish and disconnect admin 3. You could discard and disconnect admin 3. You could just simply disconnect admin 3, or you can take over. All roads for admin 3 in this scenario is a disconnection. So now admin 3 will be alerted in some fashion of the session takeover. And notice that the SMC active session it comes over with the admin session name, so which is good. However, the session itself is owned by now the active admin. And you can see in this example here that the admin now has that, and he owns that session. The admin may view the changes, and in this example here, you can see that the session change extension was not enabled. So we're going to actually enable the session pane. And again, chronological order, you can view a high level of these changes. You can see what was changing in the order. You know, does everything make sense? Well, you know, depending on how close you are and your other security admin's head, you know, but yeah, you can see high level, you got like a change action and source was changed in that role. You can see that there was a new operations, you know, for rule 7. And, you know, you can see other items. If you needed to, you could even go and try to figure this out by looking at the security policy itself. And the other item here, note that where rule 3, 4, and 5, and 7 were locked before, but since you took over, they're in edit mode now. You own these changes. Looking at rule 7 at this point doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. You know, it looks like it kind of was unfinished. The other items very well look fairly complete. But again, you know, you have to be comfortable making the changes. As the admin taking over that role, you are now responsible. These details would be so much better by using the extension, because here, again, looking at the session pane, high level, you know, kind of guessing does make sense, you know, where the changes are. But if we had the change button and in the extension, we would see more in a detail orient fashion of what the changes were. As this example plays out, you know, it goes into the managed settings, and then we end up going down to the preferences again, and find our way down to the extension bar, and we're going to enable the changes. Again, no reboot is needed. And then at this point, we can go to the different panes that we would have that change button now enabled, and we can select the changes and view in detail of those changes. This will take a little time. You know, it has to do the comparison and audit. The more changes, you know, in the hooks will actually take a little bit longer. Again, only the unpublished changes are being compared to the previous published session. You'll see that the summary comes along with the same session name. So you'll see the admin 3 in this example, which is all good. In this example here, you can see now there was 3 access rules. 1 was edited, 3 new. Objects, 1 was new, 2 edited. You could click on any of those highlighted changes to take you specific to that area. You can scroll down and look at each one in detail. And once you're comfortable with the change or making the modifications to a change that you're not comfortable with, you know, could be an example here that rule 7 still is in question. You could, you know, disable that rule 7 until you get further clarifications, but everything else looks good. Then, you know, you're off and running and being able to modify and make the change. So policy installation, there's all, as we were just talking, there's always the ownership of that. So as the admin, you have to own that. So being able to ensure you understand that when you're doing an install, you're installing all published changes that were made. And here's where some of that great value of adding a session name to those changes come in handy, because as you review these changes, you can see the date and time when these changes were made and by whom. You can go down and look at the audit logs and look in detail of what those changes were. So viewing the changes, ensuring that, hey, you trust them because you're doing the act of installing them, the policy, and it becomes your ownership, becomes that version that you're running. So it's important to be aware of that. So in SmartConsole, the revision overview, again, the R80, in pre-R80 revisions, the tool for saving and restoring old images of the security management server. But in the R80 architecture provides a database revision. And one as its basic building block, it's the leveraging the architecture to improve the performance. So referencing the revision control with the SK, making a note here, and this will again be shared. Three other items here that be mentioned: a revision is automatically kept every time a publish is done. A revision can be used to understand the different changes done in a certain point of time, and revisions can be used to get out of a crisis mode. I consider that as a last resort, but it is very much available to be used to get yourself in that back into an operation mode and running. The other item here is to ensure that you have a good restore point, so backups, regular backups, and practicing restore is still important. And it's hard. I understand how hard it is when you're in the middle of an operation that's 24/7, 365 to do these, but it's important to make sure that you go through the motions to make sure that the practices and the procedures are all working in your business. It's also noting that the revert policy is policy. It is not the changes to objects. So break it down a little bit. So you're reverting the policy, but if there's changes in those objects, they will remain there. And when you go to publish, you have to edit those changes, because so if you made an error in an object, you need to correct that object. So once there is a good backup snapshot of the management and administration, find the best course of action is to revert. So you go into the manage session and you go into revisions. You find that level where you need to be. You execute the reversion script. You will be prompted. You will be prompted to to make sure that you're aware of the recourse, and it's not something that you can undo. You can't undo this. So you can go back again. You can make changes. You can publish, but it's an act that it is permanent. As you hit the next and you're running, so it's going to actually revert, and then you hit next and it will actually create and install the policy, and it'll be running from that point. So The Smart Console revision overview. Here, I'd like to talk about the Act administration to manage and the number of revisions. So it comes through the purging of you have to decide at one point where the revisions no longer become important or has a security merit to keep. Once you decide, in this example here, we're saying anything beyond the 4/5 date there of the published revisions no longer have a merit. So we're cleaning up the database. We're basically getting rid of all the old that will not go back to that. Once that database is purged, they're gone for good. And you'll see that the updates as the purging continues, as you can see in the example, will be removed from availability. This is good. I mean, keeping your database and your number of revisions to a minimum is good. It's good for operations. It's good for management. It's good for speed, performance, and it just it's cleaning your house. It's dusting off the old. So I'm going to share out all the items here that through my time of finding a little more details about sessions and about change extensions and revisions. Do I feel after even doing all this that I'm even close to being an expert in this subject matter? No. So I'm certain that when I ask Rob for any questions, there's going to be questions that I won't have answers for, but I will do my darndest to get you the response that's needed. So Rob, back to you. Any questions?
Don't sell yourself short, Dan. Let's see. Any restrictions or differences for using these tools in a VSX or an MDM environment?
I would not think either of those would have a restriction. I mean, you're dealing with policy, you're dealing with management in the VSX. So it has really, VSX has really no leverage because that's, again, enforcement points. The multi-domain, that you have each one of the domains that you have to deal with. So that would be individuals. So at a global level, I don't think you would do it at a multi-domain, but at a container or domain level, yes, I don't see any restrictions.
Okay. Well, two of these are kind of related, so I'll ask this one first. If you are taking ownership of another admin's changes, can you opt out of those changes and apply just your own? And can you save the disconnected admin changes as a draft?
So I'm going to say, once you take, and as we cleared, once you take over an admin's session, they become your ownership. Can you discard those? Yes. So you can go up there and say discard, and that would be opting out, but it's not selective unless you go and delete, I guess, what or make the changes. But I would say if you're discarding, you're discarding. That was an option. Even you could have done that taking the admin session. You could just say, hey, discard and disconnecting, so you weren't sure what's going on, but an admin might make many changes. I mean, again, I remember folks going in making 15 changes in one session. I mean, I'm not sure if that applies anymore in this day and age, but I would say, to answer your question, you can discard it. Can you save it as a draft? I would say that all you can do is save it as in like at some type of note form, but no, I don't see it as saving as a draft. So.
Okay. Are any of these functions available through the API?
Yes, I didn't go real deep in my research with the API. But yes, there are abilities to do a lot of almost all functions that you can do at the command console, you can do through the API.
Okay. And obviously you have talked about the extension there. Are there other extensions available outside of this one? And is there a repository? I know you kind of went through that a little bit, but is there an SK article or anything that they can go to and see all the available extensions?
And I will be sharing that out. That was part of the developer GitHub. They're looking, I would imagine they're wanting to get more traction. It's really opening up SmartConsole to third-party visions, extensions, adding more. So I think it's kind of an open invitation to get your development on. So yeah. So there's definitely some out there. How large is it going? I think they're looking probably for all engagements, like any open development.
Okay, great. I think that wraps it up with questions. Thank you, Dan. Great content. As always, I'll send a follow-up email with any reference content and recording link and those, repositories that Dan just referenced. Our next webinar will be in 2 weeks on May 7th. You'll see an invitation for that soon. With that, we'll let you go. Dan, thanks again. And everyone enjoy your day. Bye all.